This video is for y'all who like the cursed shield and all, but are a bit of a pyromaniac. Today we are going to be taking the Blazing Bull to its absolute heights and seeing if this is a endless day 100 viable strategy. Something I was testing in last video and I'm going to continue here is 2xing the combats while still leaving in the real-time shopping phase, as in my opinion for a game like this, that's the most important part. That way you can see what decisions are being made on the fly, and of course the auto battler aspect can still be sped up. If you want to speed it up even more, you can use the YouTube player to up the speed, I think up to 2 times even faster. So that is completely up to you. However, I want this to be as accessible for as many people as possible. Now, without further ado, we are getting into the run. Of course, you know the grind reporter has to go the witch start. I always take these vials when I see them. It really helps me get my witch items there as soon as possible. Soon we're going to be looking for the simple curses. That is obviously a very important thing, and in my opinion I'm leaning less and less towards going the crook start. However, if you do have a spyglass early, I think it's good to get that and the dagger that gives you gold on crit, as it's just a little income that's nice to have. However, you will still lose to a lot of flame builds along the way. But of course, we did get lucky here. We get some upgrades, along with the fact that we get the Arcane Orb. Now, the Arcane Orb is important because it can give all 4 debuffs to your simple curses, allowing you to get 4, at least small potions, basically immediately and way faster than any other way that you can get bleed on a simple curses. Which means that this is the optimal strategy for the earliest potion generation efficiency that you can get. Now, when it comes to going for a day 100 strat, I think nowadays with how many 1,000 cuts builds are in the pool, you're welcome. I'm just kidding. The kind of optimal and only way that you can beat those builds is to have enough HP. So vitality slot is 100% a must, and I would say you definitely want either dark slot or the critical healing perk, as that will help you get your scaling on your Solaris way faster. So this game, you will see that I am balancing getting maximum HP to try to survive all of the builds that could one-shot me before my abilities go off, and also trying to scale my burn without killing the opponent. We have a couple cool tricks that we do, so you're going to want to stick around to see that. And yeah. Now, one thing I consider quite underrated is doing this exact strategy. Usually I would just have 2 dream catchers in play. However, I had a third that I could use. So the way that I'm doing this is I am making 1 dream catcher get the attack speed from another, and then when they combine, it'll give me the lowest attack speed of them all, which means that even that little extra that I got from that 1 round will help me, as now the dream catcher, especially when it's at 2 stars, will be only 4.3 seconds. And of course, as soon as you get the lost fragment, you want to put that under a dream catcher to basically guarantee a long round will give you 1 second on the thing that's at the top of your 3 slots. I did choose to put the 3-star on my shield, as at this point I was already generating a decent amount of potions, and that was going to give me a lot of HP because of the vitality slot. I did buy the critical necklace here. However, I was kind of deciding at what point I wanted to start picking up the dark necklaces and the night quills, as I didn't really have that much money until I get a 3-star dark necklace or enough potions, which mostly will be coming from getting a 2-star simple curses, in which case then I start getting vials, and that's when I get the free rolls galore. Okay, now we did 2-star our simple curses and we put the lost fragment under it. The reason for this is at this point I don't think I'm even going to need the dream catcher, so this was the last round with it. My last hurrah with the dream catcher was just to get some lost fragment cooldown, as soon as the lost fragment gets 2 stars, which shouldn't be too long, it will not increase its cooldown every time it gives multicast, which means that if it's 1 second, it's the entire combat. Every 1 second, you're getting 1 multicast to the thing above, which is actually massive. And as you see, as soon as this got to 3 stars, I'm now gaining insane amounts of HP. I didn't necessarily need to put the cooldown on the Dreamcatcher, as I didn't plan on using it for much longer. However, you basically have so many potions that you can reduce the cooldown of basically every item after just 1 round with the 2-star simple curses. Of course, getting this lucky shop is insanely massive. However, I will say that once you have a round where you get hundreds of potions or vials with the 2-star simple curses, I recommend, as you can see, I have 230 free rerolls. My goal here is literally just to use all of my gold and as many of the rerolls as I can, kind of prepare for the future, because at this point the scaling gets absolutely out of control, in which case you just aren't as worried about losing anymore, and you're just more worried about getting to your final form as soon as possible. Now, the main things that would help me get there is 3-starring either my potion supply, which is my simple curses, or my dragon orb, as that will give me a ton of HP for one, but it will also give me a ton of gold, which in my run that you're currently seeing, I needed to get some gold generation. Obviously, I'll still get the potions, but right now I'm more in need of being able to afford the items rather than being able to afford the rerolls, which obviously we have 200 free still, but we're broke. So yeah, other than trying to sell stuff that we don't need in the moment, I'm just looking for a Crown Forge. I basically would have sold everything that I wasn't using if I did see a Crown Forge. However, I might actually have a value potion, I'm not sure on that. But as you can see, in the meantime, having that critical healing with a critical necklace and the shield actually in my vitality slot is getting me quite a bit of HP per round, which will make up for if I face any poison builds while not having the need for a protector. Now, I do have a protector in. That's because I haven't started my start of combat scaling yet, which means that I kind of have extra slots to use. However, while you have the shield, I do recommend using every single potion you generate every single round. So I would say that it's probably good to do, you know, the normal stuff on your normal items, and then put, let's say, a potion belt out there like you saw in my previous video, and just kind of stack it with all your damage. That way you're using it and scaling your shield without scaling your damage, because obviously you're not going to play the potion belt. If you do get a mimic rod, of course, you can just get another potion belt and then make that the one that you duplicate in combat, or add an ink if you have a supply of ink as well. Okay, a few things to note so far. If you're enjoying the video, I would really appreciate a like, comment, or subscription. We are trying to grow this channel as much as we possibly can. We will not stop grinding and reporting our grind here on this channel for you all. Now, elven orbs are very important. As soon as you get a elven potion, I would recommend getting an elven orb, even a 1-star, putting elven on lost fragment or something along those lines. And if you have your vials early enough, you can instantly put that on your elven orb, and there you go. Just like that, it's a 1 second. I got 16 multicast permanent on my lost fragment, which means that now if I want in combat multicast that won't be permanent, I can just instantly put that on a, let's say, for example, a mimic rod will be better suited with a 12 or 16 multicasted lost fragment than a elven orb, which does give permanent. However, I only want the mimic rod in for a couple rounds of 1,000 potion belts. Usually the sweet spot for me is 2,000 potion belts. However, I've done a lot of runs on this channel and in general with just 1,000, as that will give you enough rerolls for the kind of the rest of the game. Now, around this point, I decided that I'm not actually going to even use the Curse Shield at all. Mostly for the challenge, you could probably get a little more scaling of the Blazing Bull if you scale the Doom Guide without using it for obviously dealing damage, but having a kind of ahead of the curve Curse Shield, scaled to 3-star a little earlier, and then you could probably cheese with a sword a little bit. However, I personally wanted to see without Curse Shield how far I could get, and when I would kind of be forced to start using the Blazing Bull to beat those Curse Shields and basically any shielding, as this Witch Potion or this Witch Shield has kind of served its purpose. And very soon, once we start scaling the Solaris with our start of combat swap, we will be swapping that out. as we won't need the shielding anymore, and the healing will be basically after, I think, 1 round, the Solaris will have outperformed. So that's kind of my reasoning for that. Definitely could, if you wanted to completely min-max every single ounce of the run, you could definitely have a Curse Shield in earlier and be scaling that, and then scaling your Solaris, and then scaling your Doom Guide. However, this is a burn-focused Pyromaniac video, so of course we are going to focus on that and not doing Curse Shield, which is in basically every Endless 100 run outside of the one-shotting stuff. as you can see, we've done a couple Solaris rounds of scaling. I figured scaling this was best early because we, in the 10s to 20s and maybe even the early 20s, you don't really have to scale anything except for shielding or healing, as no one is scaled enough to kind of rival you if you had a good enough early game. So you'll know based on the start of combat, kind of guide to tell you whether or not you need to be worried. And for most of the ones that I wasn't, I did the 2 Dark Necklace, 3 Night Quill with a Solaris, because the earlier you get your Solaris scaled, the less you have to scale it later, because you can just kind of collect on all of the scaling you did early by every round getting those 3 procs, giving you max HP, obviously amplified by crit if you have the crit perk, which is highly recommended. Now we are officially scaling the Doom Guide. We have enough of the Solaris and enough HP that I'm not really worried about anything, especially because we are employing the candy strat. If you know, you know, it is absolutely broken and you should definitely start using it. Get candies. Well, that sounds rude. Yeah, all right. Well, just buy the candy, use the healing and shielding last, and use it on a dark necklace that's going to be in for the entire run. The shielding and healing you get is absolutely worth it 100% of the time. And I definitely won some rounds, literally straight up just because of having that. That ended a little soon, however, I mean, I'm pretty sure they died quickly after. So don't worry, you didn't miss much. We're just going to be scaling for a couple days. I think I go kind of until I lose one time, in which case we have to alternate. But at this point, you can see, you know, the idea behind the burn build is kind of just, you know, you scale your Doom Guide so much without actually hitting anything that eventually, if you can keep the Doom Guide in and the Blazing Bull, you'll be scaling it more than if you had the Cursed Shield. Or so the thought is right now. We're gonna have to see if that kind of stays true, but for now, that's what we're thinking. Now, at this point, I do see that this guy has a Doom Guide 3 start. I didn't know if he had a Blazing Bull that's already been scaled. Obviously, his Doom Guide is not necessarily even close to as good as mine. However, I'm not taking any chances, as, you know, if I don't want to go Protector, which I didn't really plan on using, rarely if at all, my goal is to just survive long enough to get my Solaris and my Doom Guide to work. And the sweet spot for me, especially in these Solaris runs, is to get to around 50 seconds cooldown on the Doom Guide and Solaris. That way it'll at least proc one time. But when you have debuffs like a burn that is in the millions, if not tens of millions, you could win, or you're probably going to win basically as soon as it procs. So my worry here was that as soon as my Doom Guide would proc, that this guy would 100% lose. So I decided to put the Protector in just in case this guy was OP, while still giving myself a couple extra seconds of scaling through my Solaris, and obviously basically the Blazing Bull just giving itself a little bit of shield extra. However, looking back, it didn't really make much of a difference, so if you wanted to, you could have just done that. And now we're back to scaling. However, I am at the point, you know, day 27, I would say that you can start facing the kind of the stronger builds. So I do make a point to kind of keep an eye on what I could be facing, because if it is a absolutely insane Elven Shield plus Elven Rod, or even like a super damage setup, if I'm not prepared for it, I definitely could lose. Once again, kind of to min-max, I did put the healing from the candies on the necklace, and the necklace went into the vitality slot. I'm not saying that 30,000 extra max HP per round did anything. However, you know, if you want to play optimally, you kind of want to get in the habit of doing stuff that would be better, even if it doesn't actually affect the current run that you're in. That's something that I would recommend to anybody, whether you're, you know, trying for an endless run or not. You definitely want to kind of play optimally whenever you can, so you don't get in the habit, in bad habits. That's something that's worked for me, and yeah, highly recommend that. One thing that you just saw me do, and one thing that you want to keep mind of, is always, if you have, especially the 2000 potion belts, you're going to want to use those before your game starts lagging. And the best way to do that is kind of just, if you have extra ink, put everything onto the thing that you're scaling your damage on. That way when it procs, you know, maybe it has a little bit extra sauce, let's say, right? Especially with multicast, if you're going to keep it at, you know, 50 seconds, you want it to be proccing basically as soon as it procs, and you just want it to keep hitting until the person's done for, right? And you can't necessarily make it infinite without having like 500 multicast. However, just putting all of your stuff onto that is good. And when it goes to, let's say, 30 seconds is when I would put a new ink on and start lowering the cooldown again through the potions. But if you have enough inks, which you should have plenty of rerolls to look for inks, you should just kind of spam it. However, what I did here is just to keep my Doom Guide at a healthy amount of 40 to 50 seconds, is I started putting inks on a Nightquill, which it doesn't matter if it ever actually activates, and it's kind of my dump for the potions. And, you know, if you can avoid it, you avoid putting on the CDR potions. However, it's no big deal. If you have enough inks, you just basically put a new ink on, you know, whenever it gets low enough that you're worried that you'd win too early. And here I wanted to get my Solaris a little lower, as, you know, I was worried that if I faced a super poison build, my cast wouldn't actually go off. And the Solaris at this point shouldn't be killing anybody. It's only doing 720 times 10, so 7.2 thousand per second, which, you know, if a build can't survive that, then they didn't stand much of a chance at this point in the game anyways. However, one thing that I would say is you could definitely scale a little more per round if you just had your Doom Guide higher. However, I wanted to beat builds that kind of would get the edge over time. by getting this activated a little earlier than the ones that they may have at 100 seconds. You know, how low you take it is kind of your risk factor. You want it, if you want it to be more guaranteed that you're going to win the round, you want to have the lower out of the two if two people are scaling. But I have it around 59 seconds, and I was pretty comfortable scaling 59 seconds per fight if that's, you know, kind of what won me the fight. We have officially reached what I would call the Blazing Bull problem. We start facing people that are too strong for me to keep my Doom Guide in, because the burn actually doesn't do anything except for it scales my shield. But if my shield's already too weak compared to these other Curse Shield guys, then you are seeing that we actually need 2 swords to reduce by 80% twice the amount. So, you know, I don't know the math on it, but I know it wins me fights. It won me this fight just having an extra sword in there. However, I'm not scaling my Blazing Bull anymore, which means it's just a matter of time before they scale enough that 2 swords can't carry me, and in which case I would need 3 swords, and at that point I am susceptible to poison because I would have to take out my Solaris. In theory, you could get rid of Dark Orb. However, you could still get one shot, and if it's not a one shot, you basically will die in 1 second to most builds that are 1,000 cuts and are at this point. So I would never do that, and you could get rid of Dark Necklace. However, I like to keep it in just for peace of mind. When you're 1 HP and you've gone so many rounds without scaling your Blazing Bull, it's only a matter of time until they catch up. And so I'm just trying to kind of get as many extra days as I can by scaling. However, you know, it's not necessarily on the tables to get the 100 days. However, I will start giving my thoughts on the burn, as I want to get it all out there for you to make your decision on if you want to burn max in the future. Now, when it comes to burning, I would say that it is fun to see a big number. However, the problem is, in order to scale your shield against 1,000 cuts builds, I noticed that that's the big difference in time for scaling, because as soon as you get a single burn tick off, you're going to beat most one-shot builds, whereas the Curse Shields literally get to scale the entire time until they die to fatigue, because you can have a 0 damage setup while still scaling. Now, I may have way more burn and kind of, if you compare the multicast that's on a Curse Shield to the burn that's on a Doom Guide, it is night and day. There's more burn than there is multicast. However, if you count the amount of procs extra you get from having longer fights, it's definitely night and day there as well, which is why the Curse Shield, in my opinion, is by far the best shielding option you can have. I don't think it is viable in the slightest to go for a burn killing strat. Maybe you could do, like, you know, I don't know, something crazy like four swords, 1 Doom Guide, and a Solaris or something. Or I don't know, 3. Okay, let's say 3, ideally. A Blazing Shield, a Doom Guide, a Dark Orb, and 3 swords. But I still don't think you would necessarily be able to kill. And right here, as you see, we faced a Curse Shield Maxer with a Solaris with a Elven Orb, Elven Rod, which will beat us because we didn't have our Solaris in. But it's only a matter of time when you are kind of trying to min-max every fight, but you're not scaling your shield anymore. So unless we were able to go the 100 days, that is what it is. Now, this is me showing off kind of the build and the damage that we were able to do in 54 days with 6 billion HP against the Oak. If you did enjoy this video, it took me some time, especially the editing, to kind of try to raise the level, raise the bar for myself on this channel, and continue to improve. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you're just enjoying the content and me yapping and the music and the ambiance, whatever, like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching. I think we get to around 2 quadrillion here, which is a pretty respectable score. And if you want to see any of my other episodes, I do keep everything tidy on the channel. There is a written guide in my first ever episode, which all of my Oaken Tower content and any game I play in the future will be posted in its very own playlist. So if you're only here for one game, you have nothing to worry about. Go check the playlist and see all that I have in my collection of videos from that. So 3.4 Quadrillion, burn maxing, no curse shield. That's my record. Let me see what yours is. Send me a picture on Discord or something like that. Thanks again for watching. You're all awesome people. The grind never stops. Grind Reporter signing out.